Yeah, and it's time for the Game Sports Podcast. It's your host, David McCaig Jr. The game is powered by 91N. That's 91 Network and featured on Spaces. Now, 91N is a YouTube channel that you can check out the video versions of the game as well as other podcasts as well. And for Spaces, it is through Soo Today and Village Media, and the game is through the hockey and the sports space on Spaces. Whatever your space, check it out. It started in Sault Ste. Marie and it's expanded outside of Sault Ste. Marie, plain and simple. It's definitely great, and you can interact with everyone that's a part of the space that you wish to be a part of. Now, the Game Sports Podcast has had some unique layouts to its show for the past few weeks, and tonight's going to be no different. You're going to have yours truly be solo for the beginning. I'm going to get to 2 points at the beginning. One, that's the Toronto Raptors, and two, I'll be having the top shelf portion, as you would be familiar with it for the National Hockey League scene. And then Jordan Trudeau will be joining yours truly to discuss the major junior scene for hockey and in particular, getting into a little bit of news for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. And then Justin Hykel will be coming on by to wrap up the show in our In the Pocket segment. Now, look, I'll be transparent. We owe Trudes a little bit of extra time because in previous shows, we've eaten into his time, and same with Hykel. So we're going to give a little bit of extra love for that major junior scene and In the Pocket today. And when it comes to the top shelf portion, it's going to have a little bit of less time. And in particular, you have just me. I won't have Brendan McCarthy or Alex Parr joining me this week, but I'm going to give you all you need to know. The date of this recording for the Game Sports Podcast, November the 25th, 2025. But no matter when you're tuning in or wherever you're tuning in, it's always relative content. And I want to remind you, wherever you came from, if it is one end, if it is Spotify, if it is Apple, doesn't matter. Wherever you're tuning in, make sure you hit like, follow, and subscribe on all the platforms. We are available everywhere, as I just mentioned. And you can check us out on social media. That is through TikTok, Instagram, as well as Facebook. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to me being solo, my problem is sometimes sticking to time. Okay, that's the joys of having this pre-recorded. Okay, and speaking of something in terms of time, we had a great time with Ryan Sproul, who is our recent special edition upload that you can check out. It is on 91N and on all platforms, of course. Former Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound and also draft pick to the Detroit Red Wings, played for the Olympics, a defenseman for China. Definitely some great stories. And it was great to get the special editions back after almost a year of being stepped away from that. We're excited to bring those more to you. So make sure you check that out. And last week's news show, which has relevant content coming into what I'm going to talk about in Top Shelf briefly, because I'm going to have to dive in maybe to, again, a little bit extra to Toronto. But nonetheless, getting to my first point and sticking on the Toronto Raptors for this one. The Toronto Raptors, I'm not going to dive into any other NBA news because it's just time constraints. But obviously, being located in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada, and being a Toronto Raptors fan, I want to give a shout out to them for being a team that has now won 8 in a row and sits second place in the Eastern Conference. That is fantastic. But you know what? I also got to give love because I know we do have a lot of Detroit, Michigan area listeners in particular, having a lot of connections in the past with the Game Sports Podcast and Game Sports Show previously. The Detroit Pistons have won 13 games in a row and are 15 and 2. They were 2-2, and now winning 13 in a row puts you at 15 and 2. Basic math. You know, you have the Heat who have won 5 in a row. You got some teams like the Wizards who have lost 14 in a row. The Thunder who've won 9, and then you got teams that are just kind of lose 1, 2, 1. Look, the NBA is having its teams right now really blossom. And I know a lot of people I've talked to said the Raptors are, I think, overachieving is what the term was. I think overachieving. That's what I had on a text message. I don't think so. I was watching that team play against the Cleveland Cavaliers just the other night, and what I was really impressed with was the presence of Brandon Ingram and the defensive side of the basketball. And Scotty Barnes, you know, maybe he isn't a guy that's going to put in 40 points a night for you and be the LeBron James of this team and have that same effect, but this is somebody who is a face of a team, still in my opinion, and somebody who is a strong presence on the floor and is valuable asset to the Raptors and being someone that you could build around, which is what Masai Ujiri, easy for me to say, saw in the past when he drafted him. And I questioned drafting Scotty Barnes at first, given who was still available, but I ate my words. I think Scotty has really grown And I think the players that he's around and just the depth of the Raptors is very impressive. And the games that they've played against the Cavaliers, this was a team that had a lot of baskets, a lot of offense, but the defensive side of the basketball and really holding Cleveland back to essentially to no points in the last just under 4 minutes of the basketball game. The Raptors are definitely something exciting to watch. And I did see something when it comes to Toronto sports, having teams be in Toronto, it's like it's 2016 again. The Jays were good, the Raptors are looking good, and the Leafs are sitting last in the Eastern Conference, which I'll get into in just a few moments. But basketball, Pistons, Raptors are at the top right now. Pistons have been in the bottom, previously, for a fair bit of years. When I look at the Pistons last year, this was a team that finished sixth. And if you start looking at the 2023 season, this is a team that finished last. So the last couple of years, the Pistons have finally came to what they have really hoped and they've long awaited for in Detroit. So you know what? Wouldn't it be something to see a little Pistons Raptors conference finals? But you know what? I gotta pump the brakes there. The Cavaliers, the Knicks, those teams up there are gonna have something to say about that. But the team that's gonna have something to say about that is in my opinion, going to be the back-to-back champions, the Thunder. But what a great season it's been for the Raptors. Thumbs up to their start and thumbs up to the NBA for some, I guess you could still say, parity in the league. It's very exciting, but seeing the teams that are at the top, given who I and our region and a lot of followers on the show are at the top, it's great to see. Now, transitioning to more of Top Shelf segment, I'll obviously remind you Trudeau is going to be joining me in about 4 to 5 minutes. So this is going to be a bit more of a brief Top Shelf because, like I said, I owe time to Trudes and to Hike. And when I get into Top Shelf, I want to save it because I love getting into analysis with Brendan and Alex and the crew. And yes, I know everyone's awaiting our Olympic predictions and rosters, but we got time for that. Next week we will do that. When I look at the NHL right now, I'm seeing a lot of parity in the league, as Brendan touched on. I'm seeing the Leafs that are in last that I haven't seen in a long time, in over almost a decade, essentially to the day. The Avalanche are an absolute wagon. Winners of 9 in a row, 16-1-5. How disgusting is that? The Predators, I can't believe, after all the money they spent a few summers ago and sitting last and struggling last year. Look, I think Trotz, who has already stepped up and said that, he's pointed at the players, he's also himself. You can check out a recent press conference with him. This is somebody who has brought in players that has really felt that he has made a difference to the roster to make them competitive. You have Saros, you have Stamkos, you have Marchessault, you have the guys there, but it's not working. And do you look at coaching? That's always a scapegoat. Do you look at coaching? Look, if I'm the Nashville Predators, this project that you have on this team is not working. You're in your second year. You sit last in the Central Division. My advice to you, if you hear me say it to you, it's time to sell and time to move on from certain guys, maybe ask to waive no trade clauses, to look to move them to teams, eat up some salary for a couple of years. Because you know what? There's some good draft players that are eligible to draft the next couple of years. You can look at Gavin McKenna. You can look at Landon Dupont. There's a lot of players that you can look at that maybe if you can win the lottery or move up, but you got some deep drafts where you can add some impressive prospects. Look at the New York Islanders with Schaefer. What a great pick that was, right? The guy might be on the Canadian Olympic team. And that is really shifting the landscape for the Islanders in a positive way. They're 13-8 right now, and that could be of effect, and is to effect, of having Schaefer on the roster. So Nashville Predators and Nashville Predators fans, I'd be looking to sell and try to tank, but I think a few teams, without saying it in a minute, might be looking at trying to make a little bit of change to make a run at Gavin McKenna, which leads me to the Calgary Flames. Look, Calgary, when's Kadri getting traded? When is Anderson getting traded? These are guys that, you got so much parity in the league and teams that are fighting, but they're at the bottom, but they're only 6 points away from being at the top of their division. Toronto, just under 6 or just whatever. The Edmonton Oilers sitting on the outside looking in, they ain't going to make trades with Calgary, but the same, for example. Like, this is something that if you want to make moves, I think trades have to happen earlier before the deadline this year. If that's before the Olympics, I think that's before the Christmas break, because teams don't want to get too far behind if they meant to make a run for it, and teams don't want to be over purchasing. Let's call it. I like that term, over purchasing. And when it comes to deadline, when you're just overpaying, and there's the real term for it, when it comes that time. So teams like maybe the Avalanche, maybe it's Toronto, who's been injury riddled, but at the same time, is this the team that is going to be able to make that step? Or are you looking at the Ottawa Senators, who's expecting Tkachuk back, and then they might be able to make a little bit of moves, and maybe this team's for real. Montreal Canadiens have started to come down to earth a little bit, but even though they just took care of the Toronto Maple Leafs pretty good. The Tampa Bay Lightning, this is a team that was favorites to be a top 3 in their division. Do they make a move, right? Look at the Metropolitan. Carolina is Carolina. New Jersey's looking good. The Islanders, they got some assets they can move. Do they want to try to make it interesting and try to be a team that comes out of a wide open, I think, in my opinion, Metropolitan division? So if I'm the team like the Calgary Flames, the Nashville Predators, the St. Louis Blues, heck, well, I wouldn't say the Vancouver Canucks, but you can almost look there. Those are teams that I think should be looking to make trades early. And it gets me back to my first point. Talked about Nashville, sell some guys. You got Brady Martin, who's a Soo Greyhound. You got players there, some youth that can come up. Wood, you got some players that could be nice to build around. Try getting that draft capital up and drafting players to bring Music City back alive in Nashville. Now, when it comes to Calgary, when it comes to other teams that should be on the selling side, not every team's going to sell before Christmas, but teams that I look at Nashville again, for example, having some veterans, those are guys who move a little bit earlier. Calgary, I think if you want to get behind a little bit more in that division that, the Anaheim Ducks are really achieving, Vegas is in there, I think you try to, that you're not with those teams and you just settle that early and get a good value. Now, all back to my point that I said about 3 to 4 minutes ago. This is something that teams will not do because at the deadline, they will get that overpayment. But then you risk not moving the player or having just to get rid of the player so you get something for them unless they're a player with term. Like I said, Nashville, Calgary, move early. When it comes to other teams, and those other teams maybe being the Rangers, the Sabres, maybe the Flyers, Penguins, they can wait a little bit. They can wait. Toronto, hit that panic button, Toronto, a little bit. I'm telling you right now, hit that panic button a little bit, Toronto. I'm starting to hit it. If you're a Toronto fan, you're starting to hit it a little bit. You're getting a little bit antsy about what's going on. And my quick thing I'm going to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs before I introduce Trudes is last week I talked about uninspiring. That's something that you could check out. Very uninspiring team to watch right now. Very uninspiring. That's the third time I said it, in case you didn't know that. Injuries, yeah, Stolars, Matthews, go on the list. Okay, teams have battled through injuries, and a good team always find ways to win. If you have Tavares, Nylander, Nyes, you still have a nucleus of guys, Morgan Riley. Look, these guys are still guys that should help you win games, and they're losing games that they should be winning. And yeah, when they're healthy, what's the excuse going to be? Okay, people can reference, I have text messages again, speaking of my phone. The St. Louis Blues were in last place, and they came back to win the Stanley Cup that year. Look, okay, how many times can you count on your hand that that's happened? Exactly. Not more than a couple in all of sports. I'm telling you right now, it's not something that you see commonly. You see the Detroit Tigers of last year having that miracle run, make the playoffs, didn't win, but what a great run. The St. Louis Blues won in Game 7 at the Garden to win the Cup. There's stories like that happen, and given the distance in the division, it's still not too late. But I'm telling you right now, Toronto has to make a decision. Maybe I talked about teams that might be selling a little bit early. Maybe you have to buy and make some moves, but then you have to realize all the assets that you've already traded in previous trades, it's already affecting your future. So that is something that Tree Living is going to have to assess. But this team not making the playoffs, heck, they were supposed to go for a cup. This is their window, right? Quote unquote, their window. It's a failure. This era has not been successful. And to date, and things I, as a fan, hope change going into the playoffs. But given teams, if they make the playoffs, teams that are there, Carolina, New Jersey, Tampa, Florida, when they're healthy, are they going to beat these guys? That's something that you have to really think about. And everyone's saying that you got to fire Berube. He's lost the room. How many coaches does this team and core have to go through before we realize, it's not the coaches? Look, Berube's not the problem. It's the locker rooms that's the problem. They're uninspiring to watch. I don't enjoy watching them. I'm a diehard. I bleed blue. I stress about this team, and I'm still hungover about the Blue Jays. I'm still so sad about that. But being a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, it's not too late, but let me tell you, it's getting to that panic button stage. And if you're a Leaf fan, you got to hope and think of two things. One, are we just not going to go for it this year and trade some contracts out, reset this roster? Or are we going to look at some teams that we can buy early to try to and get healthy and try to get back in this division and make a run for it? Honestly, I don't have an answer. I don't have an expert answer. You don't have a too bright of a future with prospects. You have some guys, Cowan, Danford. You got some guys that are there. I'm interested in having some draft capital, but then I'm not interested in wasting the Matthews era. But this has already been an unsuccessful project. And maybe that's what the Toronto Maple Leafs fans and the brass had to look at to try to look at a different retool to accumulate picks. But I, for one, do want to see another run at the playoffs. But the only way they're going to do that is with a top 4 defenseman, a top 6 forward, and a healthy team. And those don't grow on trees. Top 4 defensemen are available, Anderson, so on. Top 6 forwards, those don't grow on trees. And I think the guy I'm going to introduce shortly is going to tell you that to trade for a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman is at least a first-round pick, maybe a roster player, and probably a prospect, especially a top 6 forward like Mitch Marner, who's not a top 6. I think that guy's a top 2, top 3 in terms of what he does as output. But this is something that in Toronto, start tapping that panic button. Sure, I'll respond to texts and give you guys, I won't give names, but I'll mention that some of your points are right. But you know what? I can't give an answer about what I feel as a fan. But at the end of the day, this is something that the brass has to make a decision on. But I will say something. I want to see playoff hockey still, because I can't accept them not being a non-playoff team again for a few years, because it will prove that this era was a waste, which is sad to think about. But Berube getting fired is the wrong call. Wrong call. Saying that right now. Unless you go get Pete DeBoer and you think that's going to happen, that's fine. But enough of these coaching changes. You've had multiple coaches. Not the problem. I'll be excited to talk more about that with Brendan and Alex next week. I've talked about Nashville, Calgary, all these teams in just a little bit of time, and I have had Trude's wait for a few minutes, and I promised him more time. So let's get into it with Trude's. And mid-switch, while I was talking, he goes from a laptop to a phone simultaneously. That is the beauty of Riverside. Okay, great platform, by the way, to record on. All the love to Riverside, but still looking sharp, still looking great. We all know that the mic issue and all that you may have been experiencing because was probably me talking too much while you were waiting, and your computer's like, can you just shut this guy up, for goodness sake? I thought we were talking. But Trude's, like I said, I kind of gave you a question, okay, but you can answer it if you want to about when it comes to training for prospects, because you know how that is in the major junior scene. But if not, you can just hold that and not answer it, because we got major junior to talk about, which is Chuck a Puck. But I thought I'd give you that answer because maybe listeners like to hear what you have to say about training for prospects. But how you doing, my friend? Chuck a Puck time.
But you know what? I'm good, Dave. Mic issues and all, and great on the non-hockey side of things. Hockey side of things, I'm feeling okay. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it. But trading, is this the Leafs situation in
Yeah, that
particular?
was mentioned. Yeah, like I'm not even saying
Like
just the
in
Leafs, but in
general,
general.
or okay,
General,
in general,
NHL
I
teams have
mean,
already traded their futures away to try to make a run. But to get a high top 4 or top 6 forward, those are not cheap. Doesn't matter what league you talk about. That's the point.
yeah, if you have a player that's proven, I mean, you're gonna have to pay for them, but also it's hard to give that, like, because you're gonna have to pay because it's so hard to give that up, right? A player that's proven in today's game.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what call I would make if I was the GM. I think based on like a player in particular, will that player fit your locker room well? Like if you're going on a contending run, you don't want to just bring in a guy to bring in a guy, right? Like you want to bring in somebody that can produce for you, that can like increase your offensive production or improve in your defensive zone, but you also want a guy that's going to gel with your current core,
Yeah.
right? Because you might have a really, really solid group of players and you don't want to necessarily bring in somebody that's going to disrupt that. I think most players nowadays are pretty adaptable. Like I want to say, like you probably can use anybody in any situation
Yeah.
because of just the level of skill that's in the game now. But that being said, it's still worth looking into, right? Scouting and even just getting to know a player's likes and dislikes and how they are, their personalities too, how that's going to gel. I know
That's a good spin.
that's a
That's a good
that's a
different
big that's a big thing with Kyle Raftis, I think too. Like the moves he makes, a lot of people will criticize him maybe for not making as many moves as he could have, but he also believes in like the current locker room dynamic and chemistry, right? And not disrupting that if it doesn't need to be disrupted. I don't know. You could go both ways.
So OHL news, I want to give a little bit of extra time for the Hounds because there's a jersey retirement ceremony that happened. It wasn't a result, and there were some things that happened at that game that it could be a little flag to remember. But little news from the major junior scene: the Sarnia Sting named Matthew Turcotte their new head coach there. He comes from the QMJHL is where he's actually from, Hockey Canada and those elite development programs. He was actually the head coach of Blainville Boys Buent Amanda. I can't say it correctly. Butcher me and chirp me. I don't care. I'm not French. I'm not going to try to be, but I tried my best there for you. Okay. For the 2023-2024, then to the 2024-25 season. He was also with Drummondville, and Val-d'Or. There was teams that he was with there. So he has some experience, let's say a lot of it in the Q, but it's going to be bringing it over to the OHL for the Sarnia Sting. Now, look, there was a little NHL/OHL news. Bulldogs Florian Jacki made his debut with the Canadiens, and you had the Jacki brothers against Toronto on Saturday, which was an absolute embarrassment for the Toronto Maple Leafs in that hockey game, as I already kind of touched on. And now, look, a team that's hot are those Flint Firebirds. Little hot hockey team. Right now, I would say very hot. And if you look at the standings around the OHL, Trudes, I'm going to give that over to you. Some teams to kind of, let's say, keep an eye on. There's still the teams that, the Hounds are doing extremely well, sitting at 6. You got obviously when it comes to Kitchener, you got guys that moved up, and then you think a lot of parity in the league right now, but you obviously have Brantford, who's still 18-0. That is unreal, still playing some undefeated hockey, 18-0-4. You have Windsor, who's on the top of the standings in the Western Conference, but that whole Western Conference, we talked about it last week, Truths, 37 points at the top, 30 at 6th, and that's the Greyhounds. One win, and you are moving up the standings to a different degree and are moving up in your division. So nonetheless, Trudes, parity in the league, there's some of my news that I wanted to take. So I wanted to give you a little bit of chance to give a little feedback about the current standings in the OHL. Then I want you to spin off into that retirement ceremony that we got to see in Sault Ste. Marie this past weekend, despite some unfortunate pieces to it. Falls, let's call it.
Yeah, the Western Conference is tight still. Flint Firebirds have won 9 in a row. I don't think they may have not ever done that in their history, like since they've entered the league quite a few years ago. So they're running hot right now. They do have a really solid team. Like they have a solid team of vets. Maybe they're just coming around now to figuring it out, because they had a solid team last year and they didn't do so good last year. They do have a really good goalie though, which is bad news for the Greyhounds, maybe, who are in search of a goalie, and Mason Vicari is their starter. He's an overager. So I mean, if they're doing so well, there's no chance they're going to give him up. Same with Owen Sound and Carter George, right? Owen Sound has the most goals, second in the league to Brantford by a mile, 111. So like, they're doing so well, they're not going to give up their top goalie either. So it's difficult times right now in the OHL. Sarnia, I want to touch on them a little bit. I think that's long overdue, and I think the Sarnia Sting team has been at the bottom for so long. It's been a frustrating franchise, I know, for their fans. And like Sting updates on Twitter, who's really knowledgeable about the game. He's got a lot of good takes and stuff. He or she had to take a break, because I think they're just very frustrated with how that franchise has gone. And now you're seeing them make a couple trades. They have a new coach. They're starting a little bit of a new culture there. So hopefully that franchise can get going again. But yeah, the Jeff Carter bouncing over to the Jeff Carter retirement ceremony. It was really, really, it was a great night. The poor jersey fell right before, like, I think it was like the 10-minute mark before the ceremony. It fell from the rafters, hit the ice, no problem. They, behind the scenes, all full credit to them. They got it back up and running. They got the banner up at the middle of the ice. I have a really cool picture of the Jeff Carter banner hanging in between the Greyhound bench where all the players are standing with their slick looking retro uniforms, and the London Knights with the green of the London Knights. I think it's a pretty cool picture. I'll have to send it to you. It was like a nostalgic night. It was a great night. We got to see some great Greyhound legend names: Trevor Daley, Jordan Smith, Dave Torrey, both spoke virtually on the Jumbotron. Blair Jarrett was in attendance, Denny Lambert, Craig Hartsburg. Craig Hartsburg said a few words. So it was a fun night. I thought there would be more people. There was a lot of people. It was packed, but 4,500. But it wasn't quite a sellout. Probably with the Santa Claus parade in town. No, it was an outstanding night. Jeff did well. His whole family was there. He talked about how it looked a lot different when he played here. Of course, he played at the old Memorial Gardens. Oh, very nostalgic, especially with those jerseys. And the game went kind of exactly how the Greyhounds season has went, just inconsistent. They were strong at certain points in the game. When they played their game, I thought they were the better team. Over the course of the game, I thought they had deserved a better fate. When they played their game, they were dominant. When they turned the puck over, when they were sloppy in their own end, they paid for it. So, I mean, can this team figure it out? Can this team be consistent? That's going to be the story of the year.
Yeah, honestly, to recap, when I was told that the banner fell at first, I was told before you even told me to read a couple texts that it happened during the game, and I almost flipped out. I was like, is everyone okay? Like, did someone get hit on the way down? Like, what's going on? But then you confirmed, nope, it was before the game. It was before the game. So it happened before the game, and honestly, the ceremony you can check out on the Soo Greyhounds page. It's also, you connect through the OHL website as well. But it was great to see him there. I know a lot of people got the chance to see him, and I was actually ran into Blair Jarrett today, and with a friend of mine that we worked through work, and he was talking about some memories with Jeff Carter playing on the same team, and obviously Jeff was on a line of his own. And it was great to hear the involvement and have Hartsburg there, who is a friend of the show, who's actually been involved as a casual co-host before on the show before right when we were in the middle of COVID. So, obviously we hope Craig's doing well, but obviously he's doing different endeavors. He isn't part of our show roster anymore, but with good reason. There was everything okay with that. I don't want to start a conversation that what happened, but at the end of the day, the roster that was there to welcome him was great. And Trevor Daley, okay, there's a name that needs to be, maybe. Okay, there. I'm just going to say it. That's okay. I think everyone's picking up what I'm putting down by saying the next name. I think Tyler Kennedy has to be thought of to look up there. And eventually, I think another friend of the show who's been on the show as the most guest appearances next to Brad Jacobs, Colin Miller, should be someone who should be looked at too. Someone who played White Pines hockey, played Thunderbirds, and then he made the Hounds and became the captain of the Greyhounds. Like, what are you talking about? Then previous guests that we have, hey, look, I think Sprolzy deserves a little bit of consideration too. OHL Defenseman of the Year. Why the heck not? But nonetheless, Jeff Carter, when I think of the Soo Greyhounds, when I was a kid, I remember at the old guard and seeing him come down that wing, shoot top ched every time. I love saying that term for a lot of reasons, top ched. But he knew, and I'm taking this quote from somebody, Jeff Carter was so good at shooting the puck through defenders. Very talented. Not only did he pick those corners past the ear and the goalie didn't even know what the heck was coming, but he was able to put it through the defenders, and you're able to come down the wing. One defenseman's watching, the other defenseman's watching Carter, and this defenseman that's watching the winger drive the net, he looks away for 1 second. There's already people cheering in the crowd because Jeff Carter already shot the puck and shot it through that defender that went top ched again. And I remember being a kid sitting in the lower level having that Macintosh, the Macintosh toffee, and eating it, all the stickiness in your teeth and the popcorn. Oh, my parents must have hated having me at hockey games. I was way too much of a handful. But those are things that Jeff Carter, and I remember I have the jersey up there, the retro jersey that they wore, and Jeff Carter's autographs on the front because I waited for him. I was a huge Jeff Carter fan as a kid. When I think of the Greyhounds, Jeff Carter is the first name that comes to me next to a friend of mine, Tyler Kennedy. Those are reasons why I became obsessed with the Hounds, were those two players that when it came to the Greyhounds. So it was great to see the respect that he got with his number up there, despite the banner falling on the ice before the ceremony. That is something that you don't hear of or see every day. Hashtag Sault Ste. Marie memories, let's call it. But hey, it's going to be a little laugh and a little story that I'm sure people will chuckle about it.
But yeah, and I know that some people were having problems with Flow Hockey that night. And at the one at the one concession stand, the debit was down. Like, it was just like, yeah, of course, right? Of course, on the night that we're doing this big retirement ceremony, of course things are going to go wrong. And I think that's just life, right? Like, that just happened.
This has happened.
But like, it was super fun, and it was nice to see them play, especially like really cool to see them play a team like London on a night like that. Like, that's just kind of like a historic rivalry, London and the Sioux, and the like London in town on Sault Ste. Marie on a Saturday night. Like, it just brings you back to like the 2000s. I know, and they actually, Dave Torrey actually talked about Jeff Schott, like you just mentioned, and how they were talking about, the scouts were talking about him like when he was playing in minor midget, and how he like would step out of the faceoff circle and just rip one to the top shelf. And they were like, the first time he did it, they were like, it was probably a lucky shot, and then he did it again, and it was like, okay, I don't think he's very lucky at this point. And then they went on to watch him do it for the Greyhounds, and then do it in the NHL and win Stanley Cups and all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely think those three names we mentioned, Trevor Daley, Tyler Kennedy, Colin Miller, in the near future, they should be getting a number up there for sure.
100%. And Jeff Carter never lost a draw either. Never.
He was very good at faceoffs. Yeah.
Very good at draws. And you know what? I got to give credit to the Come On Hounds. That's another. When I think of Hounds, everything when I was a kid, right? Everything is just Hike. I saw that grin there. Everyone hears that Come On Hounds. I forget his name. Maybe you know it, Trudes.
I know. The
I
cowboy hat.
Cowboy hat. Yeah.
He sits down in the section to the left of me. Like, he sits down there. He's still there, and he still yells it. So yeah.
We need to get him on this show, maybe. Maybe
We
that's something that we need.
yeah.
Maybe that would be something cool to have the Hounds super fan. I think he deserves that title. Hounds super fan. I think that if we that is who deserves that.
He's there every game.
And yeah, every game, and that voice is just echoing, and forever they'll always use that soundbite. I'll tell you right now, that is something when you think about with the Hounds, and we'll be telling our kids and kids, and be like, I remember that guy, right? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about and laughing about it. Maybe still doing this podcast at the time too. So, Trues, I did promise you extra time, and I gave you a little bit of extra time. Okay, so I made up for the last couple shows where we had to cut it short. But nonetheless, I appreciate you working out using your phone instead of the computer. I love this. Love the joys of technology. Speaking of debit being down, but despite the outcome not being the way Hounds fans wanted last weekend. Before I let you go, I kind of want you to give a little bit of a lay of the land for the Hounds this week before we let you go.
Yeah, so they finish up November. They're on the road. They are in Sarnia on Friday, Flint on Saturday. Huge 4-point games, right? Divisional games, especially at this time of year. And, it's going to be Callum Croskery is making his Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds debut after he got hurt all the way back in preseason. So he's going to be a nice addition to have in that top four, take some of the pressure off Chase Reed, who actually is going to be playing in the top prospects game tomorrow and Thursday night, if it's not tonight and tomorrow night. I can't remember. But it's in Alberta, so TSN viewers check that out. But I mean, yeah, we're getting down to crunch time. Brady Martin's going to be off to World Juniors pretty soon, and this team needs to keep rolling, get rolling wherever you're at as a Greyhounds fan. I'm more tailored towards the second one right now. Got to get rolling here. It's going to be exciting. We'll see what they do. Either way, I'm excited.
And Chase Reed, top 10 prospect rating right now.
Yeah.
What have we said from last? I don't care. I'll be cocky. This kid, I've said, was special since he put on those skates.
Oh yeah, and Dustin Grondin says the same thing. Like, talking to Dustin Grondin, who we had on the show. Yeah, like, he is a stud. Like, he is going to go top 10. He deserves to go top 10. And yeah, he's getting a lot of traction. Yeah, he's good. Yeah. So
some good players here. Let's build on that. I think this team could do something special this year. So I think they have to get some of that rolling going. Maybe I think Raptors has to still consider maybe buying. And again, like I said a bit earlier on my top shelf segment where I was solo, buying early. It's not a problem to buy early. It's not a problem. I don't care.
Luchenko.
But overpayment, who cares? I call it over purchasing.
Jet Luchenko just went to the Brantford Bulldogs, so that's one guy off the market. So yeah,
sometimes
buy early,
over purchase or overpay early, whatever term you want to use. I like over purchase because I like complicating things. So look, Trudes, before I get into going down a rabbit hole and talking more stuff, next week we'll have you back, and we're actually going to predict Canada's World Junior team. Next week's edition.
I got it.
Next week's show is going to have full of predictions. We're going to have Brennan, Alex, and I picking the Olympic team for Canada, and each week we're going to do each different team. Yeah, U.S. will consider you in the picks. Just kidding. Now, with the World Juniors, same thing. We're going to do some World Junior predictions for your enjoyment. But Trudes, we'll be back here next week, same time and same energy, my friend.
Sounds good. Take care. Have a good week, y'all.
Yeah, ciao. And now, without further ado, Hykel, I'll give you a proper introduction. Joining me now for In the Pocket, that is partnered by Sports Center Bar and Grill, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's best sports bar and best wings. Proud family member of the Game Sports Podcast, previously the Game Sports Show, since 2016, where we used to record through a phone on top of a cup. Justin Hykel, a part of that original landscape, original plan. Now we sit here with backgrounds, mics, mixers, interns on our team now. We got a grown family. We have people joining us that are co-hosts from Toronto. Like, look at how far the Game Sports Podcast has come. And you know what? You've been here from the start with me, my friend. How you doing?
It's going all right. It's basically like one of my favorite times of year. We're heading into American Thanksgiving here. There's a couple bangers on Thursday. The last few years they've kind of been stinkers. So this Thursday it looks pretty tasty. And we got a Friday game for some reason at 3 p.m. But hey, we'll take it. I'm not complaining. I took both days off.
That is, you know what? I'll say they think they should have still scheduled the games for like a 6 or 7 o'clock on that Friday. But I know they're not going by our time for that. That is going by the American weekend right there.
I think, honestly, there's a rule that they can't, in a certain time frame, they can't have an NFL game because college games are on. And I think college has Friday night.
And speaking of college, I know people, I've had some actual, I've referenced text messages a lot on this show from the beginning, from Trude's point, but ask if we're going to get back to talk a little bit about college football. Yes. We and Hykel did a lot of it last year. Obviously, with some schedule conflicts this year, we're getting into our rhythm, even though it is week 13. We will promise you this. There will be some NCAA football coverage next week on this show. We will get back into it. And we appreciate everyone's patience while they have been waiting for us to get back into it, because I'm sure you've actually truly been anxiously waiting our college football discussion. But also when we talk college football, it's a little bit empty because that used to be somebody else's bit on this show. And obviously EJ is still on our show. We miss him. We just waiting for him to come back when everything's all good for him to come back. He's working lots. He's doing his job. It's, our recording times don't work with him, but we will get back to college discussion. Now, Hike, I do got to say one thing, though, before we really dive into In the Pocket. Congratulations. I didn't get a chance to say it to you. Number 2.
Yeah, number 2 on the way.
On the way. Not number 2 going to the bathroom. Okay,
No.
Everybody? Not the bathroom. It's number 2, another little hike. Will be joining us, another Pained Leaf fan, another Colts fan, another Blue Jays fan. Yep, I would say that. Another Blue Jays fan joining the world. So I'm sure your other half is certainly keep busy, especially with the other little one running around. It's a busy household over there.
Yeah, you can probably hear her in the background. It's we're past our bedtime and she's still functional, but she's a bit of rage right now. Just doesn't matter. She's just like, I don't know. I can't wait for you to hit this stage and we can have this conversation. But she just like does random stuff. Like when she's mad, she rips a banana off the counter, takes a bite out of it, and just puts it on the ground and stares at you. Like, yeah, do something about it. What are you going to do? You just send me to bed? I'm going anyways. Fuck. What do you want me to do? Like I'm getting bullied by a 3-year-old some days.
And she's 3, right?
Yeah,
she's
just turned 3, and she's
3,
probably going to steal the car soon. Who knows?
Oh, yeah, pricking out colleges by next week.
But
now,
I mean, more. So
we'll dive into. That's funny that you say that because I could hear it in the Bible. I love that. Originally, I haven't shown my son on this show yet, and I've been promising I would, but we'll get there at a more appropriate time. So, Hike football. Look, last week, you know what? I don't want to dive into too much. Last week, I want to save a little bit of time for this week, just for time constraints, because obviously keeping our segment within that 15-minute range. We gave Trudeau a little extra time, so we finished earlier. We will, but last week, I'm not saying it was a stinker last week, but you know what? That Eagles-Lions game, 16-9, still a pretty good football game, but the Bills-Buccaneers, 44-32. I thought that was a banger of a game. I'm in the right stratosphere,
no,
right?
You're on the wrong list here.
I am 2 weeks behind. I am so sorry. I am reading stats. Cowboys and Eagles 24-21. The Cowboys squeaking a win on that one. But the 20-9 win for the 49ers over the Panthers was a stinker. 31-28 Bears over the Steelers. We all know Mason Rudolph tried his best in that game. We all knew what was going to happen in that outcome. Even my pick'em was right. The Chiefs beating the Colts in overtime. Okay. Like just a messy week, I think, Hike. Just a messy week.
Yeah, I don't. The Colts game drove me up a wall. I mean, your bread and butter so far this season has been going for it on fourth down and running the ball, and they didn't really do either of that. And they had the game in hand, literally the entire game. And they just stopped playing football the way they play football, and the Chiefs came back. It was a good game, don't get me wrong. To watch the game, it was a great, entertaining football game. But man, what a way to piss away a win. That's what happened there. I mean, better to learn it now than in the playoffs, I suppose, assuming we're still a playoff team after this gauntlet of games we have coming up. But yeah, I don't know. The whole week in general, like Thursday night kicked it off with Houston beating Buffalo. And then all the primetime games kind of just sucked. The best game of the week was the Cowboys game. And the best game of the week was the Cowboys game.
I said this last week. I said there's excitement this year. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like last year had a lot more exciting games in the higher amount per week. I feel like last year was at this point was a little bit more of that urgency, was a bit more exciting to watch. And I don't know if that's from a scheduling standpoint, but I think it's majorly because of teams that aren't really meeting those expectations. Bills, Lions after hot starts, and teams kind of overachieving, let's call it. And I'm sorry, I thought your Colts had been overachieving, but you know what, they proved they're a good football team. Same with the Broncos. What a wagon the Broncos are. Like, there's been the stories for this year, the headlines I would say for this year are surprise. That's the one word I could think of, surprises. That is something that comes to mind for me this year, to this point.
Don't forget to mention the Patriots. I mean, I hate them, but man, they are playing good football. It's kind of nice. You got some teams that are doing really well with some young quarterbacks. So there's some runway here with these teams. You got some stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what it's like. I mean, this Thanksgiving week usually kind of kicks off the pre-playoff push.
Yeah.
And this is where you start to get those games that we're all talking about for a year now.
Yep.
Going into the playoffs. So we'll see. They should be good. Then Friday, like I said, Sunday, then we start to roll. I think we got some Saturday games coming up in the schedule now, getting into December.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
It is a good time. It is a good time. And I think that October's where it's not, October's where it's like just a booming, right? And then November's kind of like, okay, well, you got hockey, you got football, World Series is done, you got basketball's lifting off, and Raptors playing some good basketball. I talked about that at the beginning of the show, which is good for Canada in general. You know, 2 of the 3 teams.
It's good for Leaf fans.
I was waiting for that to come up. You know, I think I might have to bring you on a top shelf segment and have a fully loaded top shelf segment with me, you, Parr, Brennan, and every hockey person that we have in our show, and just have a fully loaded Brady Bunch screen and just talk about how we truly feel about this hockey season. And I got a very, very overwhelming feeling that I feel like we would be pretty linear on a lot of our things. But we're not there. We're talking football.
Just
you got to
call an emergency roundtable. That's it.
So we call it. Maybe we're going to take over the Leafs, but you got a blue and white team on the Colts who have been playing some overall this season to point good football. But I really, when I look at this season, I know I forgot about the Patriots, and maybe they deserve a little bit more love from me. But I also, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, but I still think the Rams are a surprise this year. Like, I don't think that's a crazy knock. No. They've always had a good team. I think that's a surprise that they're as good as they're showing that they are.
I mean, when you look at the roster from the Super Bowl Rams team and what they gave away in terms of draft capital and other players to kind of build that team, and then you've had retirement since then. I mean, Aaron Donald being a huge one. You got rid of Cooper Kupp. Those are kind of big deals. So the team has had a full transformation, and they're, I don't want to say better than the Super Bowl Rams, but man, they're pretty good. Matt Stafford, I'd take him. You'd take him. Seems pretty good out there. Defense is looking all right. Baker threw his arm out like Uncle Rico out there on Sunday trying to ball out against the Rams, and they just absolutely shut them down. So, I mean, that Rams team in the playoffs is going to be scary for a couple teams in the NFC. And we'll see how they do the rest of the year. I mean, we've still got six-ish weeks left. I believe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
So do the Bears deserve more respect now?
I mean, they're interesting. I'm not sold. That's a tough division. I mean, do they deserve more respect? Yeah, but you got to get yourself in at least a wild card spot. Actually, are they? No, because it's Minnesota.
They think the division. They think we have the tie.
They have the division, right? Yeah, because the Lions are out. And Green Bay is the wild card. Holy. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I understand where we're going with this then now. Call me uneducated on the Bears. I just disrespect them.
Yeah, that's allowed.
Wow.
I really think that when I look at the Bears, another team that had no business being where they are right now, but you said just a minute ago, there's still 6 weeks left to go, and things can happen. But you got to think these teams like the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bills, the teams that we, figured, Ravens have already started to recuperate a little bit. But these teams that we expected to be at a different threshold are going to come through eventually, right? But these teams that we said would come through eventually, we were saying that 6 weeks ago. If they had slow starts.
If in August we would have said to anybody, listen, the Patriots, the Bears, the Colts are going to be top 10 teams in the NFL, everyone would have told me to get the fuck out of the garage. Stop going in there. Your brain doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? I don't even think I would have believed that. If you would have said that to me, I would have told you to get out of town. Like, this season's been nuts. And I don't know. It's just, like I said, Thanksgiving is kind of a crazy time. Like, you sit back, you start to look at stuff. You notice some of your fantasy teams are really out of it, and you probably should have traded guys a few weeks ago, but it's over.
And the Panthers,
it's
6.
Yeah.
What? Last year they couldn't almost win a football game all year.
And they're good. They can get better, but they're pretty good. It's crazy that basically any game at any week you've got a game. You want to segue into some picks for this week?
Yes, keeping us on time. Attaboy, Hyke, keeping us on time.
Well, yeah, we kind of got off a little bit there, so.
But you know what? It's been nice because the last couple of weeks I've been solo talking about the NFL, and I've been kind of looking at my computer screen talking to myself a little bit in the mirror, it feels like. So we had to make some catch-up talk here, and get some reaction just on the past week. But teams that are surprised, I wanted to make that a topic today because that's what this season is all about, is surprises. So let's get into the pick-em. And it feels nice to have you say the standings and kick us off with the picks, okay? I've had enough the last couple of weeks doing it solo.
I honestly don't think much has changed since I haven't been here. I'm still in first. I know there was a lead change in there at some point, but I'm just going to say I'm still in first. The David decision in second, only down 1 point. Like, it's getting close. I'll give you that. And then the EJ's broken wheel coming in third, back 3 points. And Tyler in fourth, having a rough go this year.
So one thing I'll share, do you want to feel embarrassed a little bit? EJ's in third. I'll say it because I talked about it last week, so it's already been on the waves. How many points does EJ have?
112.
I have 114.
Yeah.
You have 114. EJ has 112 and didn't pick one whole week one time.
Oh, man. I didn't even notice that.
And that week that he didn't pick,
it was a stinker, too, that week.
I had 4 right that week.
Tyler won that week.
And Tyler's in last. That's what I was saying last week. I had 4 right that week. I think you had 5 or something like that, like a handful. And EJ had 0. I was behind EJ by 2 that week. So I only gained ground on him by 2 on a week that he didn't even pick.
Wow. I never even thought that. Holy.
Yeah, some people can have a good little laugh on that this week. But, if we would have had our regular average week when we're hitting your 70%, then, EJ would be double digits behind. But he picked the right week to miss his picks, and that never happens further.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pretend I didn't know that, and we're just going to...
Well, he knows it now, I think. I know he knows it, but he hasn't chirped us about it yet.
No, it'll come up, though. It'll be an asterisk season, for sure. I'm just going to, one of us is going to be the Barry Bonds.
Yeah. It might be you. The year that you might win might be you. It's like the Toronto.
I'll take an asterisk season. I don't care. I'm fine being the heel.
Okay, give us our picks for this week.
All right,
13.
let's dive into it. So we got some big Turkey Day picks here. Get ready for the Golden Gobbler Award. I'm going to take the Lions over Green Bay. Detroit's going to get themselves back in this playoff picture. Dallas over KC because I'm bitter about the Chiefs last week. Cincy over Baltimore. Joey B coming back. Seeing, they're only 2 games back, I believe, of the division lead. So Cincinnati could make some noise. Then we got Philly over Chicago. The division leading Chicago Bears that I didn't know about. San Fran over Cleveland, Jacksonville over Tennessee, Colts over Houston, Dolphins over the Saints, Atlanta over the Jets, Arizona over Tampa, Rams over Carolina, Seattle over Minnesota, Buffalo over Pittsburgh, Chargers over Vegas, Denver over Washington, New England over the Giants on the Monday Nighter. Breakers. New England 31, Giants 24, Denver 36, Washington 13. Most points this week, the Lions. Fewest points this week, the Saints.
I got one probably gamble pick, and I love it because I got to go with my instinct on it. Going from top to bottom, like Hykel, I got the Lions over the Packers. I got the Chiefs over the Cowboys, Ravens over the Bengals, Eagles over the Bears, and a very good football game. It's going to be tight. I almost picked the Bears. Niners over the Browns, Jags over the Titans, Colts over the Texans, Dolphins over the Saints, Jets over the Falcons. Yes, said it, the Jets over the Falcons. Buccaneers over the Cardinals, Rams over the Panthers, Seahawks over the Vikings, Bills over the Steelers. Second week in a row picking against my favorite team. Look at that, people. There's no bias on this show, I'm telling you. The Chargers over the Raiders, the Broncos over the Commanders, Patriots over the Giants. 34-10 Patriots over the Giants. I got 38. Let me give you a random number for the Broncos over the Commanders. Most points this week with 38 will be the Denver Broncos, and the least will be the Raiders. And I'll even throw one up there. The Raiders are only going to get a field goal this week. 3. I am on something this week. That is
slanderous.
And that is why I'm 64% this year.
Oof.
I can't believe I just crushed both Justin and I's soul on camera about the EJ fact of the day. And when he listens to this, he is going to be pumped. He is going to message. He is going to be like, I told you so.
I'm deleting it from my memory, and then once it's deleted, it's not real. So
yeah, I like that. That's good.
That's how that's going to go.
It is. It is. I agree with that. Okay, Hike, my friend. It's been a pleasure as always. In the Pocket, which is partnered by SportsCenter. Also, I want to say congratulations again to you. Number 2 is on the way. A little number 2 hike coming on into the picture, and so congratulations again to you and T, my friend. That's from my wife, from me, my wife, the whole family of the game, and hopefully all the listeners too are saying it through their car seats or their AirPods or whatever while they're walking and listening to us. But as always, thank you, my friend, for joining for In the Pocket. I know you had a couple weeks off, you being a dad and had stuff, but next week I want to add to the prediction show. I almost want to call it the prediction show. Each segment needs to have a prediction. So next week, though, I'm going to give it to you about the prediction that we need to make. If it's the playoff picture, if we had to make a fantasy draft, I don't know, who would you pick as your offense? I don't know. You give us something, Hike. Think of something between this week and next about a prediction that we can make to dedicate for In the Pocket. Because guess what? Besides Super Bowl and playoff predictions, we have never made predictions on In the Pocket. So to get into something unique, I'm going to assign that to you next week like homework. I'm sorry, I know you're a busy guy. But see if you can.
It's all right. I can handle that.
See if you can give us something next week for the listeners and viewers to look forward to. We're going to have a prediction on each segment next week, which is going to be fun. I love predictions. And it makes for good clips. It does, for interactions. That too. So, Hike, my friend, thank you.
Hey, no worries. Good to be here. Good to be back. And we'll be a little more dialed in next week. I will not let it slip like I did this week on not knowing the Bears were in first place. Holy cow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
You look, there's been a lot of surprises, just like this season has been. And if EJ isn't back next week, I am hoping that Dane Hancho can make his debut back next week with us. I'll have that in the plans as well for us, so we have a third individual on this show. On this,
So get him on. He's been over to the garage. We've watched the Colts and Falcons game, 9 a.m.
and I didn't get to watch the Steelers with you. Life of being a dad.
That's the way it is sometimes. Trust me, I understand.
I missed it though. But till next week, Hike. Thank you again. In the pocket. I want to thank you again to George Trudeau, for joining us, and to you, the viewers, listeners. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe at all the platforms. Check out 91N. Follow there. Spaces. Check out your space. Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on all the socials at the Game Sports Podcast. Okay, if you need me to spell that out for you, we can put it below for you on the description. And also make sure that you're always tuning in, having it flagged through other platforms that you're joining so you don't miss an episode. And check out, again, the Ryan Sproul edition. Special editions are back. It was fantastic. And last but not least, just like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm going to end it the same way by saying happy early birthday to my mother, whose birthday is this Friday. Got to show the love and give the birthday wishes on radio and any place for the mothers. Okay? All right. Now, there's my little parenting advice for everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Game Sports Podcast edition here. Again, hit like, follow, and subscribe, and comment if you really loved it as well. And until next week, I'm here to remind you to keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.